Hi, this is Anthony Guardia here at WCAT with our very dear friend Ian, who has put this together. Our, I guess now regularly occurring conversations with the superintendent and assistant superintendent. And let's get started. I know last time we were here, we recapped. Do you guys want to give a quick recap of what the public may have missed since our last discussion?
Sure. We had school committee this past Tuesday night. We covered quite a bit of ground. We had an MCAS. We covered an MCAS review. I had the really good fortune to welcome Leah Ellis, who designed a new hat. And the hat that she designed is being sold online. It's the Love Your Melon company, but it's for often kids with pediatric cancer will kind of design their own hat and then sell it online. She was so wildly successful with this that the hat sold out in about an hour and a half.
Wow.
And so I think that they've reproduced it now 2 or 3 times, but I think she's raised just a ton of money for cancer research. And is a lovely kid, terrific family. She's now at Galvin, but she went to elementary school at Greenwood. And I know the schools, I know Greenwood is going to have a hat day.
That's awesome.
Everybody will have one of those hats. And I think they're doing the same at Galvin. So she was at school committee this past week. A president of the WEA, Jess Cummings, also kind of gave some opening remarks during public comment, just to kind of give her perspective on kind of what is important and really what she wanted the community to hear about where we are at the teacher contract and kind of how negotiations is going, right?
No, wonderful. And do you want to jump right into it? Or Kara, did you have anything to add before?
Yeah, no, I think that covered it. I think we'll get into some other specifics on other topics.
Well, yeah, and for me, I think the 3 big topics are, in no particular order, but just the way I'm going to start them, is the teacher contracts.
Yep.
The budget, and then, of course, MCAS. But let's start because the WEA pushing 60 days without a contract. What's the feeling? I mean, what's happening? What's going on?
So we are still negotiating, and so sometimes people will ask us, do teachers get paid if they don't have a contract? And what that means is that they don't have a new contract, but until a new contract is put in place, the old contract is what we're relying on as a guide to move forward. But we have negotiations next Wednesday night, November 1st, and we are super optimistic that we're going to make some progress that evening. And we hope to be able to settle the contract in the next few weeks. That's our goal. But there's still, the devil's in the details. The last few meetings where we're really working on the details around cost of living increases and all of the other little the things at the end of the contract that I can't get into all of them because we're actively negotiating. But those are the things that we're looking at right now. And again, like I said, the WEA has given us a lot of good feedback, a lot of things to think about. And we've had some really good exchanges, and I think it's going to be a very positive contract.
No, that's good. I always found it's a difficult discussion, right? Especially in a small town, because I think everybody, to a certain extent, knows the teachers. Everybody wants to see the teachers get paid. Mm-hmm. It's probably not as difficult as it was a few years ago when I would say there was quite a bit of any type of school budget increase or any type of teacher pay increase was met with a lot of skepticism from other boards. And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, by the way, not.
Yeah.
I think relatively recently the town has become better at appreciating teachers. And I think that's reflected both in whatever the contract ends up being, and hopefully it's a good one. And hopefully you see that support in town meeting and in the budget, because that's the final outcome. If you don't mind taking people through this, because I don't think they know, what does the contract process look like? Do you mind just explaining it? Because I tell people I always found it a very unique position to be in. Mm-hmm. People know I'm an attorney by training. I do quite a bit of negotiation, and this is the only negotiation where I feel like there's too many people in the room trying to work out a very complex contract. So can you just give that? I don't want to give away the story here, but how does it usually work?
Sure. Well, usually, usually in the fall, before the contract is going to expire at the end of the school year, what will happen is the union will reach out and say, we would like to, get together, make a calendar, and start negotiations. And usually the first meeting is a meet and greet. It's we get together, we talk about ground rules, we talk about how we would like to negotiate. And then we enter into negotiations. And, it is like people envision. The teachers bring a series of proposals, and they say, these are the things that are really most critical to us. And the school committee brings us a list of proposals, and they'll say, these are the things that we feel is most critical to the district. And we go back and forth. We exchange proposals, and we try to agree on the things that we can. We try to understand how the proposal is going to benefit both teachers, students, and the community. And we also think about, on the school committee side, I think that we have to answer, and I'm including Kara and myself in the administration with the school committee. Technically, you're an attorney, you know this. Technically, the contract is between the school committee and the teachers, right? And so, but there's a lot of exchange of information to help each other understand what each group needs to do their best work, right? Now, the school committee always has a lens on budget and what is sustainable. Truly, there's never enough resources that I believe that, the community and parents in town would love to give the teachers. I mean, everybody loves their child's teacher, right? And we love the teachers that we work with as well. So we too want to see them get the best contract, the best raises that they can, while also balancing, we have a responsibility to try to balance the budget, right? And we have to then go back to FinCom and to the town and say, this is how much our budget is going to cost, right? So we think about sustainability. We think about really improving things incrementally over time, right? So that might be too much information.
No,
but there you go.
Well, the reason I ask is because I think it's such a hard process for the public. And I mean this even as somebody who uses the public, and I know you can't get into it, but it's hard when you don't know. You're like, well, what are the teachers asking for? And what's the school committee asking for?
Yeah.
And, the public, sometimes I think it's very hard to have that kind of discussion because the negotiations are still ongoing. And
can I add? I think one of the things that we talk about is one of our greatest challenges is just really trying to talk about the work, right?
Yeah.
The work of teaching and learning, or the work of running a school system, right? It's different than any other budget in town. It's different really than any other organization, right? And so, and I know finance people look at it as debits and credits, money in, money out, right? Or, we're investing this much money, what are we getting for outcomes? Well, if you have children, if you're fortunate enough to have children, you realize that growth of children, the learning of children is not linear, right? It's not. If you go to the pediatrician, they might tell you that when your child is 3, they're in the 90th percentile for height. That doesn't mean that they're going to be in the 90th percentile, for their entire development. But learning is a little bit like that, right? Where kids, it's hard, and the work now is more complex than it ever has been. Steve Mayo uses the term learning loss. And that's something that term became very popular after COVID. And we stopped using it, and not because it doesn't capture the needs of kids, but it requires more language than just saying learning loss or gaps or student needs. When we talk about the needs of kids and how teaching has changed, right? So where kids are starting in classrooms now, the range of where kids are starting, okay, at all grade levels is different than it was a few years ago during pre-COVID, right? So there was more continuity. We had more touches with kids. We had more time with children. But since COVID, there are these increased gaps, right, where students have been isolated. There's increased needs for counseling. So there's increased needs for English language support. One of the things we talked about last night at the tri-board was the changing demographic of our students as well. 10 years ago, we had 20 English language learners in the district. And now I think we have, correct me if
Over
I'm off,
100.
over
Yeah.
100.
Wow.
So in 10 years, we went from 20 to over 100. So, and as students come in, when their first language is not English, they're entitled to be supported to develop their language, English, often a second or third language for some of our kids. So they're learning the language while we're trying to also teach them the curriculum. And the expectation is that the outcomes for all students will be the same, right? They have to reach this level of proficiency by the time they get to high school. So it's difficult, right? And that's not even getting into the changes in special education, the change in special education out of district placements. Pre-COVID, we used to have greater availability to send a child to an out of district placement if we could not educate them in town. Post-COVID, the few schools that are left open are at 110% capacity with waiting lists that put you out 6 months or a year. So the onus now is put back on the districts to really try to work hard to meet the needs of kids. And to go fully back, to circle back where we started, we were talking about the teacher contract. So all of these changes, right? All of this lands in a classroom with a teacher who, is expert in their content area that they're teaching, but now they have to learn about their children and their needs to best serve them. Do you want to talk a little bit about the special education piece?
Well, I can speak about that, but I think even before jumping into special ed, I feel through this process, our collaboration with the WEA on the contract, we agree more than we disagree. I think we're all of us, school committee, administration, teachers, all in on competitive salaries for teachers. We want to be a highly desirable district to work in. We want to be highly competitive with not only our DART districts, but a Middlesex League. We want to be seen as a high-performing district. We want great outcomes for our kids. We want great working conditions for teachers, great learning conditions for students. So there's a lot that we absolutely are on the same page with. And then I think when it gets challenging is that there are so many other priorities and high-interest areas within the district at every single level that we just can't possibly agree to prioritize everything. And I think that's where it definitely gets more challenging. I think the big picture pieces we're definitely on the same page. I think we all agree to go into special ed, the changing population of our students. It's just every year more and more complex, especially post-COVID, and things that can't be ignored. We have mandates from the state. We have kids in front of us who need different supports, and we have to be able to respond in the classroom. And then also the family connection as well. We need to do more and more to bridge gaps that we might have between school and home to help support our students even outside of the school day. So.
The other piece, I'll just say this and then I'll leave it, is the other piece is that the labor market right now is in such a place where we used to post a job and get 300 applications for one job. We had, the top 3 candidates could probably work any place in the state, right? Now we're getting 20 applicants for those jobs. And they aren't our most hard to fill positions. Our school psychology positions, very difficult to fill. Our different positions at different levels in different schools, really hard to fill. Our nursing positions, our therapeutic positions, our advanced course positions. It's really difficult to find teachers to teach advanced high school courses. I mean, very, very difficult. And so, that's something that we need to be able to talk more about, because what's happening in the labor market across the country is also happening in schools, right? It's probably even more magnified because people have different options now, right? And so, and the work is difficult. Let's just be clear. To work in a public school is super difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that ties nicely into the next topic, which is the budget. And just to recap, I think, a lot of people, I'm going to back up before we get into the next topic. They see the signs, they see the protests, they see the social media, and there's a fear of, oh my God, what's going to happen? I think if I'm understanding you correctly, it does seem pretty optimistic, though. It seems like things are heading in the right direction and coming to a head, and knock on wood, will happen pretty soon. And, I do want to give kudos to the school committee. I always tell people, like, school committee members, the weird dichotomy of any board or any committee is they're also volunteers, right? They have families, they have full-time jobs, they have every stress and worry that everybody else has. But then they're also technically in charge of the most important department, right? In my opinion, I'm biased. And if in that case, it's hard for them to be in a position where they're trying to negotiate and balance all the different interests. So I do think, we're lucky that it seems to be coming to a good place. And
really doing it from kind of the outskirts, which I think is super challenging. I do feel that can be, there's a lot of people in the room, with maybe too many, but I think it is challenging if you're, even I think our school committee members do a great job of trying to, stay up to speed, to read through the materials we provide them, but they're still have, challenges in just not being day to day in the schools, kind of knowing the district-wide perspective, which we are fortunate to have and bring to the room.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the hard part. I think, Kevin Piscadlo, who was there with me many years ago, he probably remembers, but there is something very difficult to those finance people, and there are a lot of people who will quickly talk about taxes and budgets and balancing it. Say it's easy for you to write on social media, and it's easy for you to grandstand at a meeting or a town meeting and talk about it. You've never had to raise your hand on Tuesday and know on Wednesday somebody doesn't have a job. Because behind those numbers are real people, and usually people It's not like you're just cutting 10% of somebody you'll never see. You are basically going to lay off your neighbor. So what I always tell people, I won't say who, but I used to say, if you really believe that, then get up and say you want to see these positions laid off, and these are the people that you're laying off. And like, well, I don't make those decisions. But no, by arguing that you want to lower the budget or arguing that you should come in, you are making that decision.
Right.
So that kind of brings us to the budget, because I do think that's one of the pros of the tri-board, is that you now have those discussions with everybody there. Because I do think, every budget in every department, like in a school and any organization, changes every year, right? Every budget, some budgets may go down, some may go up, down. People retire, new hires. So when you have the tri-board, you can really see the entire picture, probably a lot better than you could if you didn't. So what's the plan with the budget? How's that work with the tri-board? Where are we with that? And I got to tell you, how do you even create a budget unless you know what the salaries are going to be?
So when we negotiate, to go back to the teacher contract, so this speaks to your question. So how did we create a budget for this year while also not closing out the teacher contract? And so there's a 3-year contract. So whatever money is allocated in the budget this year, that has to be a portion of what will fund the 3-year teacher contract.
No, makes sense. It just makes so.
But it's not easy. It's not easy to do. I mean, the long story short, it's not easy.
But I guess it would. This is probably a very maybe a naive way of looking at it, but I have to imagine if you're working on the budget, you have to feel positive about where you are on contracts, right?
So, well, in hearing from the town, in the fall, the town kind of, reconciles their budget for what they have in terms of money coming in, and which really starts to translate into, based on the scenarios that they create in FinCom and Town Council and Steve Mayo, they create a series of scenarios, which is, worst case scenario, best case scenario, how do we shake out? How does it work? And I'm not expert in this area. I feel reasonably informed because we've been doing this for almost a decade, working, and I've learned just a ton from, the finance committee liaisons and also from our finance subcommittee from the school committee. But in terms of how it shakes out, so that the town does their forecasting based on last night's information that was presented. The town has come in a pretty good place in terms of what they're ending up with and how that will translate into the budget for this year and free cash and all of those things. One of the things that is a goal, I believe, of Steve May, I've heard him say this at least 24 times, is we're really working hard to maintain our bond rating, because our bond rating is kind of equivalent on the private side or for individuals, it's like a credit rating, right? And so that allows the town to borrow at the lowest rate possible. And while we're building a new high school, that will be particularly important because it will also indicate the amount of the tax burden that will have to be passed on to the people that live here in town. So right now we have the highest bond rating. We're in a good place financially, but in terms of settling contracts, I think it's going to be very positive, very positive, very positive.
No, and then I guess, what are some of the big priorities or the big things we're looking at this year's budget? What are some things we're looking to fund, or some things that people should worry about, I guess?
Yeah. No, I think the first thing that we're looking to fund is the teacher contract.
Yeah,
and that's going to be teacher contract and labor is the greatest cost that we will have in our budget for the next 3 years.
No, and it makes sense, by the way. That's usually the case. And then I guess, do you want to tell people a little bit about the tri-board? We kind of brought it up, but talk about what that is and
Sure.
What you'll be doing.
Sure. I want to say for probably 5 years now, we've been getting together in the fall, in October, with the Finance Committee, with Town Council and School Committee. And there are a few administrators that join the school committee, myself, Kara Mauro, and Christine Bufagna, our school business administrator. And we share we talk about our budgets, we talk about our needs. From the school side, that we talk about our budgets and needs of students, what's changed, what are priorities. FinCom gives their predictions, and they talk about the overall financial health of the town. Steve talks about kind of the details of the budget, Steve Mayo. And then, it's a 90-minute recorded meeting. It's a lot of information to take in. But I think what it does is it makes public the work that we're doing and the cost of that work.
No, it's true. And I think you guys post that around social media. I think the Wakefield, credit to Brian Fox, building an empire there on that Wakefield Mass community page. But, getting that out there and having people see it is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I think one of the pros of social media is people can watch these meetings themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Last but not least, because I know we're getting close to our half hour, MCAS results. And I know for me, it's hard in a sense because, you have people, you don't want to see people teach the test. You never want to say the test is a standard bearer, but you want to see results. And when you see the test and you see the results, well, I'll let you say, why don't you talk about our results in the district?
Sure. I think Kara's really expert in this area. And I think she and her team, she works with the curriculum coordinators and oversees curriculum and all the facets of curriculum instruction and assessment. And so Kara and her team led the presentation at school committee, so I could probably turn it over to Kara.
Yeah, I think that what you said is huge. There is a balance in terms of MCAS and our emphasis on it, but it is something that we can't ignore. I think it's definitely, we talked about this the other night, something that gives us some kind of baseline to help drive the work that we do in the district, but it's not the only measure that we use. I think for the last couple of years, we've we have been analyzing our results and kind of thinking in general we're not where we want to be relative to our districts that are our DART districts, those that we're compared to because our towns are very similar, but also within Middlesex League. So I think we have a goal to be the best district that we can be. And one of the most public markers of that is MCAS. Unfortunately, like that's what a lot of people look at. And I don't think that we are teaching to the test. I think we're using our past results to help drive things that have been a heavy focus for us. One of the early topics that we identified as an area of need was our need to align our curriculum K through 12. I think that work started probably about 10 years ago, where it was identified that there needed to be more consistency in terms of teaching to the standards K through 12 with an appropriate scope and sequence, and making sure that all of our that there was that vertical alignment through our grade levels in every content area. MCAS is a standards-based assessment, so we were feeling that we weren't performing the way that we should. I shouldn't even say feeling, we were knowing, and we identified that as one of the areas to try to tighten up, and that's been a heavy focus for us. We're in year 3 of math implementation, of a new math curriculum resource implementation, and our results this year showed us some really great strides there. All of our elementary levels, that's been our other push to get our 4 elementary schools on the same page for more equitable experiences. We don't want there to be a situation in town where you have to go to this school to get this experience. It's a goal of the district to have equitable academic experiences across every school. And I think the work of our curriculum leadership team, our elementary teachers, principals, had some great wins this time around, where we had at every elementary school, all of our schools met or exceeded their targets in math. And that, I think, is a result of the great work that's been happening. We're in our first year of a new ELA curriculum, which was a really heavy push the last couple of years, doing a thorough curriculum review. We're in year 1 of that implementation, so this year's results, I think, supported the need to shift to a new curriculum. We kind of either stayed stagnant or declined in certain areas, and I think across the district we're feeling that writing is an area of focus for us across the district, that our writing skills aren't where they need to be.
And how do we, just to people who don't know, how do we compare to the district right now, or compare to, similar communities? Middlesex is such a big league. It's weird to say, but I get it.
Right.
Listen, I want to be better than Winchester and Lexington and Linfield as well. I want to be there. So where are we in the district?
I haven't done any rank ordering this year. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah,
He's
no,
laughing. And there's so many nuances to the comparison. But
I'm smiling because we often get this question, how do we compare, right? So, just if we could back up, MCAS was never designed to sell houses and zip codes. It was never designed.
But it does.
But it does. So yes. So that's the way people use it, right? Okay. So it is a measure of kind of quote unquote how schools are doing. But you could just as easily look at, the median home price in a community and predict MCAS scores if you're looking just at scores, right? And so, I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. But in terms of the question, how are we doing compared to DART districts, and how are we doing compared to the Middlesex League? I too have not done a one side-by-side comparison. I could tell you normatively that we're probably in the top 30% of the Middlesex League, or the top third would be my prediction. Again, I haven't really broken it down,
that's fair.
but
Yeah.
in our DART districts, I think we would be in a similar placement.
And for people, so what does DART stand for? Or if it doesn't, what is it? Just
it's basically the towns that DESE picks that match.
Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They choose a series of towns that meet size, socioeconomic status. And who
English
are those
learner,
towns, if
special
you
ed.
just don't mind?
Oh goodness,
They change every year.
Oh, I would guess, but
it changes every year, and some you could guess, and
It's
some
just
you'd
Stoneham,
be
Melrose.
surprised by.
It's on the website. You
So
can,
Stoneham is not. Melrose is. There are other districts on there that you would think, how are they even remotely close to us in terms of just because geographically they can be all over
All
the
over the
state.
place.
Right?
Well, and in fairness to that argument, I do say, like, you can look at a town like Wakefield or Reading or Stoneham. I know this as I was doing more work in Stoneham with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and you realize, oh, Stoneham is dramatically different than Wakefield. So it is a different comparison.
Yeah.
Per se, was in,
Yeah.
so.
We get a similar question every year when the U.S. News and World Report
Yep.
puts out a ranking of high schools and districts and all of this business. And if you look at where we are, look at where we were and where we are now, we've improved dramatically. So these are relative measures. Do I look at them? I do, right? Do I feel like I feel like I'm a pretty competitive person. I think Kara is as well. And I think she showed a little bit of this when she was speaking earlier. We're looking to make better, right?
Yep.
What we have. We're looking to always improve, and we're looking to give people the resources to do that work to improve.
And while acknowledging the significant needs, I think this came up the other night too, that we have to keep in mind certain things. We have to keep in mind low socioeconomic status, English learners, special ed, students with disabilities, and that they're the progress might look different, the growth might look different, but it's still important for us to keep everybody moving forward and to not stay stagnant. And if we are staying stagnant, then that's something that we need to look at as an administrative team. But I think, just to summarize MCAS, I think the way we structured the presentation the other night, we had some things to celebrate. We still have work to do, but we have an action plan in place district-wide to help us continue to make that growth. So I think that was at least a feel-good part. I think our results this year really just supported the work that we're already doing that's identified in our instructional strategy. We're having our school improvement plans align with that. Our teacher professional practice goals and student learning goals tend to be aligned as well. And then everything plays out in the classroom. The classroom is where all of, we can talk up here from central office. Everything important happens at the classroom. So it's our biggest goal is to make sure that our teachers have what they need, especially in terms of resources.
Well, true, and that's to go back, and we'll tie it up full circle as we wrap up. The reason why, and I always say this about teachers, I don't want to see teachers paid more. Well, I do because I'm friends with a lot of them, right? Right? Like they're friends, they're colleagues. I graduate. We were just talking about Mr. Constantine. We graduated high school together. Because, yes, but the more important reason is because of the impact they have on my kids.
Yeah.
And without saying where they go, but, we send my son to preschool. He was a COVID baby. He was very shy, not as talkative as we'd like. He went to preschool. He came out, and Boys and Girls Club, we did a ribbon cutting at Melrose, and he stole the show. I mean, and to see his verbal skills grow, to see his math skills grow, to see his curiosity grow, you could ask me those teachers could come to me and ask me for my credit card, and I would give it to them because of the impact they have on my kid.
Of course.
And I think that's, to your point, to tie it all together, I'm willing to pay for higher salaries because I'm seeing, and again, I know this isn't a fair metric, but it's the only metric I have, because I'm seeing better MCAS scores, higher rankings, prettier building, and better results just in the quality of the young people. And I do think, to your point, listen, we have young people who are creating hats to fundraise for cancer. I don't know if you can ask for better.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. It's like, when you think about it, and when you talk to kids or adults, when you talk to them about their favorite class or their favorite teacher, it's not always about the subject.
Oh, true.
It's really about how that teacher made them feel, that teacher inspired them to think differently about themselves, right? Or saw something in them, right? We hear this over and over and over. Doug, I had a coach. That coach saw something in me, and I tried something, and I became better. A teacher saw something in me, and I tried something, and I became better. And that's happening every day. And so this is why we do look at scores. It's part of our lives. It's like Zoom. It's part of our lives. It's what we do. It's part of the exchange of information. But, really at the end of the day, we want to give students the skills to go out and also make a difference in the world, make something
true.
for
It's
themselves,
just
right?
Jonathan Barris and Mr. Muscardini. Oh, let's make sure he doesn't watch this because I don't want him to get too much credit. But Jonathan Barris, Mr. Muscardini, I mean, you remember them. You do because they do. They make an impact, and it's not about the subject to a certain extent. It's how, to your point, it's how they make you feel. Well, with that said, do you want to talk about a few things that are coming up people can look forward to, and then?
Sure. I also wanted to congratulate Bev Elsowitz. Bev Elsowitz was nominated and was selected for the Community Service Award from Seth Moulton's office,
Awesome.
Representative Moulton. And it's given annually. It's named after Reverend Gomes, but it's given annually to a person that goes kind of above and beyond and serving their communities outside of the workday. And I don't know anyone who is more deserving. And Bev couldn't make she couldn't receive the award from Seth Moulton's office in Beverly on the day because she had a family commitment. But we were able to present that to her at school committee this past week.
That's awesome.
And, if you know Bev Elsowitz, she's fantastic. She's working to, feed families during the holidays. She's supporting students to get their high set, formerly the GED. She is just working all the time to help kids. And she was just, and what's I will tell you, it's a little fun for me is she is just not having any of this award stuff. She's just, Doug, please don't like, can we not talk about, she will talk about anything other than herself, which just makes us all that much more committed to make sure she's recognized.
No, absolutely. And those, I kind of push, and I don't think I'm saying anything out of school or inappropriate here. The Wakefield item, like other local newspapers, are struggling. And I always say, if you really want to see readership go up, those are the stories you got to focus on. Everybody can watch a meeting, right? You don't need the reporting on the meeting per se because you can watch it. But those stories you never hear about. That Bev and the young lady making the hats, like that's that's news. Like that's the cool stuff you want to hear about. With that said, did you want to say one quick thing about the SBA or?
Thank you for reminding me. This past Wednesday, the board of directors for the School Building Authority, MSBA, met and they voted to increase the cap on the reimbursement rates per square foot for the building of the new high school, and also they have increased the cap on the site work square footage reimbursements that they would provide. Steve Mayo shared last night that, and this is an estimate, and he estimates that it's $12 million
awesome.
in addition to what we're getting. So again, that's going to help taxpayers even more. It's going to help the kind of the free cash situation, bond rating, but it's also going to help contracts, right? And so,
absolutely.
And so it's also going to help contracts. So we're looking forward to. We're super excited about that, and that's a plus.
No, it is, and I will say, do you think there's any correlation to that? Because as many people know, WCAT is housed in the high school. Ian becomes the executive director. SBA says they're going to give $12 million in addition. Mm-hmm. Do you think those two things are related? I do. I mean, I think it's true. Without Ian, the town would not have received the $12 million. He's here in this room right now, by the way. That's.
We should all make sure everyone sends a note to Ian.
Yeah.
You could probably put his email address right online.
Yeah.
Sends a note to Ian and thanks him.
But I will say, as we wrap up, thank you again for doing this. We'll do this again in a few weeks. If you do enjoy stuff like this, definitely consider donating to WCAT. They do need the donations. They need the funding. And, Ian's pointing to the camera, so I'm just going to look at it and just say, if you're interested, donate, go to their website. If he can, put a little tag, maybe a Venmo or something, or a link where people can go and donate. So thank you, Ian, and the WCAT team for doing this. Thank you, Doug and Kara.
Of course. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Always. All right, thank you.